Hello, my name is Tim Ryan. Welcome to another episode of the Tim and Jenn Show. Yay, sitting here with my amazing co-host, wife, best friend, business partner.
Hi, I'm Jennifer Jimenez Ryan, and thank you everyone for tuning in
Hell
to
yeah.
another show, another episode. This is so cool. It's freaking hot. Like, it's just hot. I'm sorry. I get really, we live in like a historic landmark. So we have AC in our room, nowhere else in the house. So it gets a little stuffy and the lights and stuff.
It's stuffy and the lights and
I think that I'm a little agitated today. I mean,
little? Lot? Yeah, but you got health issues going on. What frustrates both of us is the ignorance of some people and just they don't get it. You explain things and then 3 days later they're texting you what you ask them,
I've been kind of saying, I've been talking about it. You guys know this. Like, I've been talking about like not being well for a little while, like chronic pain, all that stuff. But then I actually found out some stuff that's happening. I'm not ready to talk about it. However, I am ready to say that I get really tired and some other really serious things are going on.
You got some health issues.
Yeah. And it's real life shit. And I'm trying to learn to process it and understand it. And I'm being proactive about it. But I have to stay very calm. And that's not something that I'm very much about. I'm very passionate about how I feel.
Well, even being able to schedule things, you get tired quickly and it gets overwhelming.
Yeah. And the ignorance. Okay. So some people, I've told like maybe 5 people in my circle. And then, there's these people also that I've noticed, even on social media, people have been like, oh, I haven't seen you post or anything. And I thought that was really sweet. And it made me go like, oh, wow, they're actually attentive to, something. And people are reaching out, and I am okay. I will be okay. Life will, one way or the other, you're always okay. And I have to hold on to that. But I like that those people have been really, my friends and people on social media have been really cool about it. But, ignorance is bliss.
Hey, you know what? Something I forgot to talk about. What did I get in the mail this week?
Yeah. So some badass shit's been happening. And my husband.
20 years in the making.
20 years in the making. Has got his.
I got my letter from the state of Illinois, where I was from, that I can get my driver's license back. I have not had a legal driver's license in 20 years. My last DUI, my third DUI, was December 16th of 2010, and I have not drove a vehicle since that date, because if I would have got caught, I would have got another 10 years in prison. But
I think we did talk about this.
Maybe.
Yeah. But I got to tell you, regardless, you could talk about it every single day because it's a badass thing. And I get to become passenger driver.
Yeah, it's been, I was reflecting on, I got out of prison, I walked everywhere, and then I had little Kyle the kid drive me, and Derek and Brad and Max and Nick. It's been crazy, but yeah, we're here now. And honey, in the next few weeks, you won't be having to be my personal chauffeur anymore.
I am really happy about that. I also, some people have said in life, like, oh, well, you have all the answers, or how to do this, or you're, the recovery, guru, or this or that. And I think because I know what you're going to talk about next right now, because we just finished talking about it earlier, is that no one is a guru in recovery. No one has all the answers. No one, the old timers, thank you for being around because you've showed us that we could do this. There's a team behind me that I run things by that help me, direct me to make decisions. And other times I intuitively know, how to handle things that used to baffle me. But with that being said, I don't ever want to get it twisted. When I work in recovery, I'm working in recovery. I apply some of the things, my tools and stuff, but I'm not working my recovery. My recovery is different. I am no different than the day that, than the next person that maybe even has 5 hours sober than me, except I have tools. I am an arm length away from my next drink or drug. I don't have the answers. I think that people that work in recovery need to know that, we all know.
No, you're wrong. You're wrong. You're wrong, and don't sell yourself short like that and say, I don't have the answers. Bullshit. You've got a ton of solutions to offer people. It's up to the individual on what they choose to do. But the point you're making is
I do have solutions, but I don't have all the answers.
you don't have all the answers, but you got a lot more than the person 5 hours sober.
Okay,
Jennifer.
but no. What I said is next to the person.
Oh.
I'm no different than the person that's 5 hours sober. Like
Yeah.
my next drink or drug is just an arm length away, as it is theirs. However, a lot of times I've heard and I've had conversations with people that work in recovery, and they're like, they have all the answers. And when you have all the motherfucking answers, you scare me. I just want you to know that you scare me.
We won't mention names, but
a lot of people have a knowledge.
Well, there was someone you met a few years ago, and this individual, you had dinner, and you were, I think at the time they were 3, maybe 4 years sober, but you're like, hold on, this person has the answer to everything.
Mhm.
And you were shocked that their ego. The point is, don't put me, don't put Jennifer, don't put our next guest on any pedestal. We're just people in long-term recovery that have some solutions, that do some things, but it's ultimately up to the individual on what they do. Because I'm seeing a lot of people die. People in long-term recovery, people that were working in treatment, relapsed, another job, dead. People are dying left and right, and we need to look at things differently. And that's why we chose to bring our guest on from last week back again.
Because we never finished our conversation.
We didn't
There's
finish,
so much knowledge he does have.
He's got a shitload of knowledge. Michale Deleon, again, thank you. Back to the show.
Our future councilman or senator.
You like that, huh?
Yes, I don't know how many votes I would get, but I have a very unique past, and I love what you guys were talking about. I told you already, Tim, congratulations, but congratulations again on becoming a driver. I'm going to try my best to get a Hummer or some sort of, a tank to be driving around if I come to LA.
Thank you.
I'm scared of you. But anyway, you're right. Jennifer doesn't have all the answers, but she's got a lot of answers. And she has a lot of insight, and she can really help people. So can you. And, so can I. We have a lot of answers, but not all of them. No one does. No one does.
Absolutely. So when we ended last time, we were getting into discussions about cannabis, marijuana, and you had said something brilliant. Well, there's medical marijuana and there's marijuana. It's all the same, right?
Right. Yeah, there's no such thing as medical marijuana and recreational marijuana. That's complete farce. There's just marijuana. And the way that this industry, which is the tobacco industry, people have to understand that this is big tobacco. This is George Soros, Monsanto, big tobacco, the pharmaceutical industry. I had a kid the other day say, oh man, you're just a fan of big pharma. You're one of the puppets of big pharma because you're against cannabis. I said, you should go look at some of my videos. Okay, you should follow me. I despise the pharmaceutical industry. Despise the pharmaceutical. The pharmaceutical industry wants marijuana legalized more than anybody else because they know what's going to happen with the induced psychosis from high THC concentrates on the adolescent brain.
I agree. I agree with you. And it's interesting. We taped a podcast with another guest, and this gentleman's 9 years clean and sober from alcohol, heroin, meth, but had smoked cannabis for 8.5 years, almost 9. And he's Native American, all this, but he quit it because he said he was getting paranoid and having psychosis. And he said, 18 days off it, I've never felt so good. But at the time when I got sober, it helped me. But then it got to a point to where.
Let me take it back to ABC for people like me. What does it do to an adolescent?
So the brain is developing, okay? And, Jennifer, you like all women, women's brains develop much faster than men's brains because women are smarter than men. Girls are smarter than boys. Like, I get that, right? But the brain doesn't fully develop until you're in your late 20s.
25, 26 years old.
Yeah, well, my wife Darla says for men it's 57, so I'll be there next year.
I got 4 more years.
Jeez,
is that right?
No wonder you are the way you are.
But the brain's developing, okay? If you're 20, I wish the drinking age, nicotine age, marijuana age, I wish it was 28, okay? 26, as Tim said. I wish it was much later when the brain's developed. But the law says 21. So if you're 21 and older and you choose to drink alcohol, more power to you. If you can drink alcohol and not have a problem and not have it affect your life, more power to you. I'm not one of those people. If you could smoke weed, God forbid that you smoke the stuff that they're selling commercially now, but if you're 21 and that's a choice you want to make, don't get in your car, okay? Stay at home, okay? Or go to a shop with someone else driving, just like alcohol. But that's a choice you want to make as an adult. I don't tell adults how to be adults, you know? This is not about adults for me. This is about 21 years of age and younger, period. That's what this is about, while the brain's developing. Now, again, as Tim said, 26, some people say 28, the brain's not fully developed till you're in late 20s. So I wish nobody would touch it. It's the same thing with nicotine. I've interviewed now from 3,600 people I interviewed in prison. I had a 12-question survey I did on 3,600 inmates in prison for the last 5 years. I knew exactly what I wanted to do with the rest of my life. And then I've been interviewing people since I got out of prison, a lot on video, recoveryarmy.com. Jennifer's amazing stories on there. Tim's, if I can get my editor to finish it, Tim's will be on there. But I've told a lot of stories about people's amazing journey in recovery. And some of those people used medication-assisted treatment. Some of those people were delivered at a Christian concert, you know, in cold turkey. Some of those people quit using drugs in a jail cell and prison saved their life. Many different paths, right? But here's the thing. I'm not focused on adults. I'll help an adult if they need help. My focus is kids. And out of the 10,000 interviews I have done, 90% of every single addict, every single person in prison, out of prison, who overdosed, who struggle with addiction, 90% before the age of 18 used alcohol, nicotine, and marijuana. That's the trifecta gateway. And it was 99% used one of the three, 95% used two of the three, and 90.7% used all three before 18. So THC is a hallucinogen, nicotine is a stimulant, and alcohol is a depressant. So while the brain is developing, you're depressing, stimulating, and hallucinating the developing adolescent brain all at the same time. That's
Well,
why
and now, Mike, that is just with nicotine, alcohol, or weed. Then throw in this device with social media, TikTok, Instagram, all this other shit. They're getting fed and stimulated by that as well.
And we shut schools down in some states for 18 months, but we shut schools down for a year. These kids were not connected. That's why self-harm is drastically increased. Suicide attempts have increased, suicides increased, drug death has increased, drug use has increased. And we are in a big, big crisis right now facing our country. It's not political, it's not religious. Every single demographic in this country is affected, and our children are affected. And what just took place before Trump left office is he signed the Farm Bill, 2018. He signed the Farm Bill, 2019. And the Farm Bill legalized the hemp plant, hemp. And a lot of people think hemp makes good rope, okay? No. Hemp has over 400 molecules in it, and some of those molecules are psychoactive, and some of those molecules are more psychoactive, more hallucinogenic than Delta-9 in the cannabis sativa plant. So there are molecules in hemp that get you more high than any Delta-9 molecule that's ever existed on our planet. And now it's 100% legalized in all 50 states. So I had a big conference today. I had 130 people in a breakout session for 2 hours. And I was teaching on this. And we had about 15 minutes for Q&A. And I had 6 people in probation, social work, counseling, and superintendent of schools talk about incidents where their kids or their students or their custodial kids have had incidents of psychosis because of Delta-8 that they bought legally in the state of Georgia from a CBD shop, a vape shop, selling Delta-8 in a state that doesn't even have recreational marijuana in it.
And then there was something that Clarence Thomas, one of our Supreme Court judges, said. Some article I was reading, basically he said, you know, prohibition's over. We need to change the laws with marijuana. They're outdated, and basically legalize it and be done and lift the federal mandate.
But I mean, it's interesting for somebody who's never smoked marijuana to talk about what our policy should be on marijuana. I left into a session after my session was over. It was harm reduction. It was called harm reduction. Can you imagine me walking into a harm reduction?
Yeah.
So anyway, I lasted about 10 minutes, But the misinformation that this guy was talking about, he said at the end he was going to have people ask questions and he was going to walk around. Couldn't even make it 10 minutes for what this guy was talking about, because he was celebrating the needle exchange program. Needle exchange program, I used to hand out needle exchange program. I used to be 100% for it. Problem is, with a clean needle, you're sticking fentanyl in your needle, you're putting it in your arm. It doesn't matter if it's clean, you're dead.
Right.
He was talking about a woman in a Range Rover who pulled up to this needle exchange program and had her 2 kids in the back seat. He's a kindergarten teacher and he's celebrating the needle exchange. And I'm wondering, okay, so that kindergarten teacher with her 2 daughters is going to go home and shoot fentanyl into her arm and die, and you're celebrating handing her the tool to do it.
It's truly gotten pathetic, and I'm with you on the harm reduction. I used to go to the Chicago Recovery Alliance, but then I started seeing all these people, Dan Biggs, who started the Chicago Recovery Alliance, dead from an overdose, huge name people. It's not working. And we're not seeing AIDS and Hep C spreading. You're giving people a delivery mechanism to die. And all this bullshit, we meet them where they're at. Forced treatment doesn't work. Yeah, it does. Well, forced prison worked. That worked for me. It worked for you.
And I think a lot of treatment is forced anyway. Maybe 10% of all the people I helped get into treatment willingly and embrace it.
Right.
Yes, I'm going to treatment. 90% went because they were facing criminal charges. Their parents were kicking them out. They overdosed for the 6th time and it scared the hell out of them. They were brought back by 6 shots of Narcan and they realized finally, my God, man, I better go to treatment. You know, we're losing people left and right. The poisoning fentanyl. So we're moving a paradigm shift from the drug overdose epidemic to the drug poisoning epidemic. Clean needles ain't going to make a bit of difference.
You know, it's interesting. Jen and we just binge watched The Wire, which is about drugs and cops in Baltimore. In 2004, in one of the episodes of The Wire, they were talking about the potency of fentanyl and how now
this new drug came in.
This is 2004. We are in 2021.
Wow.
And these idiots, it's not going away. Fentanyl's everywhere. It's going to get worse. It's going to get worse. It's not going to get any better. So let's quit putting a fucking Band-Aid on things.
I love that you said that. And that's the question I actually was thinking about earlier today that I wanted to ask both of you, is we lost the war on drugs. We never won. And like, for people to think that it's going to get better, like, would you say it's going to ever get better? Or what do we do? What do you think needs to happen?
Great question.
Yeah, the talking point, the war on drugs never worked, right? And most of the time, people who say that, they really never struggle with addiction. They were never locked up. They really weren't in the thick of things at all. They're just some talking point person said a talking, the war on drugs didn't work. First of all, they have no idea. I made a movie called An American Epidemic. In 7 minutes of that movie, I explained what happened to Richard Nixon, where the war on drugs happened. It was really ironic. There was a addictions conference in Washington, D.C. the week after he announced this big war on drugs thing. And he went there, sat through sessions, okay? And there was it's An American Epidemic, the clip. It's very rare, but President Nixon said, you know, maybe this whole thing about criminalizing addiction is not the right approach. Maybe the right approach is a different kind of methodology that we go after these people who are struggling with addiction. He was questioning it himself. It was the prison industrial complex and law enforcement, the DEA, the Justice Department, the FBI, that pushed the war on drugs. This didn't have a war on drugs. The war was on drug addicts, poor, and minorities. That's what the war was on. And we built prison industrial complex on the backs of those 3 people, minorities, the poor, and the addicted. We never, ever had a true war on drugs. The money that they spent in South America, the money that they spent has done nothing but make grill good movies like Blow, right? They have real good movies, okay, like American Gangster, all these things. But they gave a lot of law enforcement careers where they made a lot of money, right? We didn't fight. Our southern border now is pouring fentanyl in, so it's not about getting high anymore. I tell Tim this, and Tim has said it a dozen times that I can remember. I'm glad I got clean when I did.
Yep.
Because I'd be dead right now. There's no way I'd have a chance right now. I'm scared to death of what's happening. So I don't think we're going to win the war on drugs. I don't believe we're going to solve addiction in this country unless we do one thing: educate kids. We've got to stop it from starting in the first place, period. But we're still spending 10 cents out of every dollar in this country on prevention. We're spending 90 cents out of every dollar on harm reduction, incarceration, law enforcement, judiciary, drug court, parole, probation. We got to spend 90 cents on prevention. And I'll tell you, I said it last week, but in 1999, 33% of high school kids smoked cigarettes. 15 years later, $150 million was spent on the Rappel program and educating kids about tobacco and nicotine. And we went from 33% to 7% in 15 years because kids decided they weren't going to smoke. We can do the exact same thing with these kids. That's why you and Tim, speaking in schools, good people with cautionary tales, with the right information, with motivation, can get these kids to turn their life around and not use drugs. They shouldn't get started in the first place. But we're talking to them about heroin and opioids. We should be talking to them about alcohol, weed, and nicotine.
I agree.
I love it.
And then here's another dilemma in that is, 50% of families or kids are coming from divorced homes. So a lot of these kids in middle school and high school, because we see them, we get their messages. It's not even them struggling, but mom's a drunk. Kids coming home having to feed the 3 other kids, do homework because mom's passed out or dad is a drug addict or whatever. These kids are coming from homes filled with trauma, and there's no resources in the schools. I had a mother I talked to today. She said, why don't they run AA or NA meetings or support groups in high schools for these kids? I said, I have no idea. Why isn't there Al-Anon or Alateen or support groups? No school I've ever spoken has any type of support groups. And we talk about starting them, and then you never hear from them again.
I'm listening to what you're saying. I actually think that it's really hard. Like, okay, so with kids that come from lower income, if you're struggling, like, you can come and see the counselor. Well, the kids, your other friends find out, you go and see the counselor, or you go like all of a sudden you're like the idiot of school.
Well,
right?
they've got guidance counselors. These schools don't have true social workers.
Well, that I agree
educated
with,
people, but you got the peer pressure, but some people are just trying to keep food on the table and not go
but they don't have a place, or like no one has like a class or whatever in class. Like I remember we had a peer counseling class in my school. And it made me want to become a counselor. And then I got discovered modeling and life changed. But I remember being in that class, and like they were talking, people would go around and they talk about like their problems. And I was like, I'd look at everyone like they were crazy, because I was never taught to talk about my problems. I had to go to school and smile and act like everything was okay when it was a fucking catastrophe.
Right. Where you had them and you wish you had someone.
Yeah. And I looked at them and I was like, well, how do I even say it? Like, I didn't know like the term breaking the cycle or breaking this. No one taught me that. So I got sober, I'm in treatment, and they're like, well, your mom really helped break the cycle on certain things and issues. And I was like, what? And like, I didn't even know that term, you guys. It was only 16 years ago, the first time I checked into treatment, and I learned that word then. Like, what?
But it's even the things we do different, Mike does different when educating schools versus these people that think they're 2 years sober and they're now a motivational speaker. Because a lot of people go into these schools and they tell a war story and I shot all this heroin and my penis fell off and it grew back, and I did all this heroin and cocaine and I was a drunk, but now I'm sober and I got my own apartment. What? Right. Yeah, I don't want to hear that.
I'm working on my master's degree. I'm a peer specialist and life is perfect. And the kids looking at the speaker like, well, you turned out all right. Look, I'm
Yeah.
just smoking weed and taking Xanax. That's all I'm doing, right?
Right.
So we justify to the kid, he justifies in his own mind
Yeah.
that he's okay and he can travel down that path. But the speaker who's speaking was popping Xanax and smoking weed and drinking in the junior high school when this kid is where he is right now. So he's on the exact same path and he doesn't make that correlation. And the other thing is, I don't want to go in and scare kids and make kids cry. There's a guy that loves to go in and he's like, look, I made all the middle schoolers cry. Isn't it emotional? No, you're a fucking asshole. You don't want kids crying because then they emotionally detach from the lesson and the message. They don't get anything.
Right.
That's why I don't have parents who have lost their children go talk to schools about putting the field hockey picture on the screen and the cheerleading picture on the screen, the most beautiful girl ever, okay, and they're breaking down and crying. I'll talk about that. I'll put their pictures on the screen because I'm detached from that person. It's not my daughter, it's not my son. I can talk about them and get the message to the kids. And then we both know speakers who are celebrities, and no offense, Jennifer, you're a different kind of celebrity. You're not, you don't wear your celebrity on your sleeve and say, oh, I did this, I did that. You can mention it, but you have a real educational message, a real overcoming trauma message, overcoming abuse message. It's powerful. We have to get to these kids. And after this lockdown and this year of quarantine, man, our kids are desperate right now, desperate for a path, a strategy, a playbook, you know.
Connection, purpose.
Well, I mean, another thing though, too, about the kids, when you were talking about it, it's so true. Every single thing you said. And you know, when people are like, yeah, I made a kid cry, like it was great. The whole entire school was crying. Like, okay, I'm not equipped to make somebody cry and then get them through that. Me and 2,000 kids. They don't even have enough staff or counselors.
Right.
Because if you've opened Pandora's box, we need to heal it.
Yeah.
And then we're left with not healing. And then these kids are going to block it, of course, right? We're going to shield it. And they're going to self-medicate, hurt, harm, destroy, destruct, and kill themselves or someone else.
Yeah. I mean, I can't tell you how many events Jennifer and I have done. And then we're doing a community event at night. And we see 100, 200 of the students that are showing up with their parents. When you're doing that, you're doing something right.
100%. Actually, parents have come to your events because their kids came home and talked about what you talked about in school.
Absolutely.
I ask that question all the time. How many of you are here tonight because your kid came home and talked about the assembly and told you to come? And more than half of the parents always raise their hand. Then you get some people and you stay after and you talk. But not only that, you have resources, you have knowledge, you know how to get someone into treatment. How many times as a kid, their parent to a parent night, and you've gotten the older sibling into treatment that you never even met before because the parent comes for some advice. I think we are in for 36 months of straight escalation. The amount of fentanyl that's pouring into this country and the amount of high content THC, wax liquids, concentrates, dabs being flooded all over this country, and the total naivety of Congress and state legislatures of Delta 8 and soon to come Delta 10. You know, I had one superintendent get up, or not get up, he raised his hand, he asked a question today. He said, we had a girl bring in, just about a month and a half ago, a girl brought in a vape pen and passed it around in gym. There was like 6 kids who hit this vape pen, and then they all went to class. And teachers were calling the office, calling the nurse, they called 911, they brought in medical personnel because these kids were out of their mind, right? And so they tested them all the parents, the school couldn't test the kids, but the parents drug tested the kids. Not one of those kids tested positive for THC, not one, right? So he said he was investigating and he had a school resource officer who got a hold of the pen and found out it was Delta 8. Called American Screening, which is a Louisiana-based THC company, and their THC drug tests test for Delta 8 and Delta 9. The kids were retested 2 days later and all 6 tested positive for Delta 8. They were all high out of their mind, but the parents tested them for Delta 9 and it didn't show up because a lot of drug tests don't test for this other molecule that comes out of sativa or hemp. Parents have no idea, but if these kids get onto this and they smoke it every day, we're going to lose an entire generation.
Well, this goes back to 4 or 5 years ago when I was getting all these calls, my kids on something, whatever. These kids were buying research chemicals off the internet to act like Xanax or whatever, high out of their gourd. I even had a couple in treatment, but nothing was showing up in a drug test. And then we found out that,
I'm going to say something that actually I just thought about it, and this hurts me. I swear to you, this really actually hurts saying this out loud, but I need to. My concern is it's not if they find out, Mike, it's when they find out, because kids, teenagers, they're smarter than we are.
Yeah.
They're quicker than we are, and they've got the internet. So this shit is going to travel probably sooner than later.
Yeah.
It hurts me saying that.
So
You know, it's
Mike,
scary. I had a guy from a treatment center there today in my session, and he came up afterwards and he's like, how much feedback have you been getting about THC withdrawal? And he said, I didn't hear you talk too much about it. I says, yeah, because when I talk about it, people think I'm crazy. First of all, try to get a verification of benefits to send somebody to treatment for THC. It's next to impossible. And he's like, exactly, we have to lie and say things that they're on other drugs, right? But anyway, he said, what they're seeing with these teenagers, these adolescents that are coming in, alcohol and THC, they're dealing with the alcohol detox for 5 to 7 days. It is the next following week, week 2, that they're dealing with THC withdrawal. These kids are withdrawing from THC, and people are like, come on, man, there's no withdrawal from THC. Okay.
oh yeah, there is.
Just wait.
I mean, I can tell you just a withdrawal in nicotine when in prison.
Tell parents out there that are listening to this what it looks like for their kids to be smoking, what their signs are, like when you smoke a vape.
So
Delta.
withdrawing is a huge red flag. You know, you're gregarious, outspoken, always talking. There's a lot of time spent in the living room, in the dining room, in the kitchen. Now it's all in the bedroom. Really withdrawing, it's like the first big red flag. Changing appearance. Your daughter used to get up 4 hours before school and, you know, try on every outfit in her closet. Now she throws on sweatpants and the sweatshirt from last night. Yeah, not like Jennifer. She brings her entire wardrobe on a trip and then has a
Right. True story.
Yeah, true story. But your daughter, your son, you know, I'm not saying they start smelling and stop using deodorant, but hygiene has definitely changed. Definitely changed. So mood, different reactions that never existed before, things upsetting them that never upset them before. They change what they watch. They change what they listen to. All of a sudden, you hear their phone and you're like, who's that artist? Oh, this new artist that I listen, and it's not the same genre that they've been listening to all their life. You know, they used to go to bed with their cleats on and their mitts under their pillow. They live baseball, and now baseball is not that important. Changing the entire persona and personality of the child. And it doesn't happen slowly. It happens fairly quickly. Changing friends, lying, you know, and from appearance, skin tone is definitely changing. That full color is not as full anymore. Bad breath is a monster warning sign. Or you're smelling something, you're like, what the hell is that? They have sprayed strawberry and mango all over their, you know what I mean? To hide the smell. You won't smell tobacco, cigarettes, because very few kids are smoking cigarettes or vaping, and you won't smell it. And you won't smell marijuana either. There's no marijuana smell.
Well, Mike, let me ask you, for all the families that have loved ones struggling like that, and we're talking the adolescent population, and you hit on it, there's not a lot of resources if someone's stuck in you know, weed psychosis. Right. You know, there's not a lot of treatment centers that certify you for that. And that goes hand in hand with the mental health crisis, especially for adolescents that don't have financial resources. Our system sucks. It's fucking broken. There's no help for that mother that has a 15-year-old defiant child that's using drugs, that has depression, that's cutting, that has no resources.
So
I
what
had
do you,
there was a little over, I think it was 132. There's a couple of people that left. It was a 2-hour session, so as entertaining as I try to be, some people don't last the whole 2 hours, right? But at the end, there was at least 120 people in the room, and I asked everybody to raise their hand if they work at an adolescent treatment center, and there was about 15 in the room that worked at adolescent treatment. And so now raise your hand if you have a class or you have anything where you teach kids what THC does to the brain and the body. Guess how many raised their hand?
Zero.
wow.
Not
None.
a one. Not a one. Now raise your hand if the number one drug of choice for all of your adolescent admissions is marijuana, and all 15 raise their hand.
Yeah.
Every single one. So it's the same thing with treatment centers. These places that are in Florida, California, and Texas, they're not teaching these young adults and these kids about weed. As a matter of fact, some of them are even saying, listen, I'd rather you smoke weed than be on opioids.
Yep.
Okay, well, were you on weed before opioids? Most likely. And this is not weed. That's the thing. This ain't weed. It's like, someone really attacked me the other day for being against needle exchange programs. I said, I was for it when it was heroin. I was for it when you're shooting dope. You're not shooting dope anymore. Handing out a needle is just like allowing your child to play with a loaded gun. You're giving the gun to the addict. They're not going to shoot up there and then they say, well, that's why we need safe injection sites. Okay. I give up, right? But I'm not against harm reduction. I'm against what harm reduction has become.
I agree.
I'm not against cannabis. I'm against what cannabis has become. It's not cannabis anymore.
So what do you do though, Tim and Mike, like when you just said that there's no help for the lower income people, parents. What do
There's
we
not
do?
no
What do
help.
we do?
There's minimal. The average family has no fucking clue. Multi-million-dollar home, great insurance or cash. They don't know how to navigate treatment. That's a problem. It's all go to Google, type in help, and whoever pays the most gets the first ads
So
on
what's the
Google.
solution, guys?
I don't know what the solution
And
is.
a lot of
Jen.
those reviews on a lot of those treatment centers are not real reviews. They're paid reviews that have been placed there for, I'm telling you, so many of these treatment centers. The best thing to successfully get through treatment is the counselor connection. So you can have a connection with a counselor at a Salvation Army. You can have a connection with a counselor at Hazelden. You connect with that counselor. Mackenzie Phillips, one of the most amazing women I've ever known in my life. I had such a connection with her. She wasn't my counselor or anything, but I know people who went to treatment and she was their counselor. Bob Forrest, one of the most amazing human beings on the planet. Right?
Both those
He's
people.
an amazing person. I don't agree with everything Dr. Drew says, right? But I agree with a lot of what he says. He is an amazing person that can connect people. I had a guy in my PC program in prison, Juan Negron, Negron, Counselor Negron. I connected with him so much. It was in prison. You couldn't have sent me to a $100,000 treatment center to get me better treatment than I got from that guy. But like Tim said, minimal, it's not available right away. And we only want to send people to treatment if they're 100% on board. It's crazy.
That's ludicrous. And I just had a brain fart.
I feel like with the parents though of kids under 18 or younger, don't give your kid an option. Force, like what you guys started off with.
Here's the
Force
problem.
them,
You
throw
can't.
them.
You can't. State Illinois, at 14 years old, if your adolescent says, I don't want to be here, you cannot physically keep them in treatment. That's the problem. There's too many fucking laws today, and I'm going to sue this. That's why interventionists and interventions are so important, to get the entire family and the person on board, to get them to treatment, then trying to get them to stay, then putting together an aftercare plan once they get out. I mean,
you both are very good. You're interventionists. There are other people that work for treatment centers that are doing interventions. They have been down that road. They're very good, So there's great interventionists in this country. And then there's people who shouldn't be interventionists, but just like every field, there's cops that shouldn't be cops. There's people in McDonald's drive-thru that should not be there. Okay.
I agree.
So in every field, there's people that shouldn't be where they are. That's human. That's the human race. That's our country. That's where they are. You just have to get to it early. I don't believe that once you're in full-blown addiction, you have more than a 20% chance of success, no matter what treatment center you go to. That's why I always come back to prevention. An ounce of prevention prevents a pound of cure. How about a pound of prevention? That can prevent a kilo of cure. We need to get to these kids. And it's an afterthought. Like if you think, go back over the last 18 months, right? And think about COVID. How many stories did you really see about the effects on children's mental health and well-being?
Not
It
many.
wasn't too many, you know?
No, you're starting to see those stories come out now.
Well, you and I
Unfortunately,
talked about it in the first month.
we've been
You and I
talking about it
you
out
guys
of the
did
gate.
An article in the very first month. You kind of sold the concept for me. No, I'm just kidding. But you
It
called
was
me.
actually me. I
Oh,
gotta take,
she
I
needs to
gotta, I'm
play-
sorry.
blah,
I just
blah,
need to
blah.
jump in because it's been kind of like a male dominant conversation. It was me. And I'm very proud of myself for that moment. That's my own.
Pandemic within a pandemic. You said it in the first month. First
Yep.
month.
Yeah.
And you were right. And we were right. And now we're dealing with the
And
aftermath.
here's the problem. Here's the fucked up thing with this fucking industry is I know, you know, Jen, we know a lot more than the average bird, but then you get some dipshit clinician who's been sitting in their box for 25 years and they think they're the know-it-all, but they haven't been out in the streets of Chicago or Jersey or Tampa or LA. They just do their thing. And everyone says they want to work together, but that's bullshit. Every person in this space has their own fucking agenda. And guess what? Mike Deleon's agenda is prevention to our youth. End of discussion. You know, I'm sick and tired of the bullshit, the kumbaya. Let's go to another treatment center open house and take selfies and post them on Facebook and spend $10,000. How is that helping people?
Right.
It's
So-
all bullshit. It's all smoke and mirrors.
You know-
Trying to get into a school. Some schools, the principal or vice principal brings in, some a guidance counselor, some the school board, some the superintendent, some the community. So all these variables navigating, it's not easy. And people are begging for it, you know?
It does. It takes a village. I love that expression. Everyone has to be on the same page. That's why we have now digital format for every part of a community. We present it to the community. We have a video for the law enforcement department that they can show all their cops. We have a video for the hospitals that they can show all their nurses. They can email the video through the platform on Google Drive or Dropbox. We need to get this message. The Chamber of Commerce is presented with a 30-minute video, addiction in the community. We all have to come
You know
together.
what's really fucking amazing with all these videos is you've got all this content and my video from a year and a half ago has not been finished.
Yeah.
I know we're trying to get in and redo it. I'm giving you shit.
No, but I want it done. It was perfectly shot. And the editor that has it, you know him.
Oh,
He's
yeah.
so good. He's so good. But now he's up in the belly in the beast in Seattle, Washington. I can't even get him to finish it. But
So what are your biggest frustrations, Mike? Is it schools being uneducated about bringing you in? Is it follow-ups from, because Jen and I, we get to schools, everyone's on board. We're going to do this. A week later, you don't hear from them. Nothing.
so, yeah, that's why we have the continuing education. We have the 8-video series that's presented to the school so they can show it in their health classes for 8 weeks. The hard copy material, either from the DEA or from NIDA or from Foundation for a Drug-Free World, presenting that stuff out there and getting it to the hands of everybody you can. Because this is not something, you know, like a lot of schools that are like, oh, okay, it's Red Ribbon Week. Let's
Right.
do a drug assembly on Wednesday. And that's it for the rest of the year.
Yep.
In New Jersey, they have Respect Week. They do a bullying assembly the second week of October, and that's all they do. They check it off. Because a lot of administrators care about 2 things, budgets and test scores. That's it. That's what they get paid on. And then they say, well, if the kids dropped out of school, they're not our problem anymore. How are they not your problem anymore? They're in your community. Right?
Because a lot of them don't give a shit anymore.
No,
They go,
they
they get their paycheck, 5 years, I'm tenured, I can do what I want when I want.
Yeah, I
And
was
that's not
trying-
everyone.
I wish drug education right now was taken as seriously or raising as much controversy as critical race theory. Like, I wish drug education would be taken that serious on both sides. Okay,
I agree.
So scream about it and fight for it. Let's debate. Like, I had a guy today, one of the guys in the audience. You can always tell you guys are professional presenters, and you can tell who your people in the audience that are on your side and who your antagonist is going to be, right? And so this guy, I could tell he was going to be my antagonist, and at the end, halfway through the presentation, I could see the heads nodding and I could see the frowns. So I always have to say, again, listen, if you got a question, don't wait till the end. Raise your hand and ask it right now, because you're going to forget the question. You're not going to come back to it, and you're going to remember it tomorrow. You're not going to be able to ask me. And you're afraid you're going to interrupt me or I'm going to lose my train of thought. I'm not. Just ask the question. So as soon as I say that a second time, the questions start asking. So for the whole thing, he's asking me questions. He's like, pro-marijuana, 100%. We're locking up millions of people in this country for marijuana possession. And I was like, what planet do you live on? Okay, you're absolutely wrong. I'm obsessed with data, okay? Obsessed. You can't tell me anything about weed in this country that I haven't read. I have every paper, every book, everything about weed. I'm obsessed with it. He's like, we're locking up millions of people in this country, so don't you care about social justice? I'm like, social justice? We're locking up people of color disproportionately for every crime under the statute, every crime. So if you're for social justice, don't pull out weed. Go fight for social justice, and let's fix racial disparity in our criminal justice system. But how about if you're for social justice and you're against racial disparity, locking up people of color for weed, how come you're not fighting for the rights of African Americans who have criminal convictions to open up their own dispensaries in states that disallow you to have a marijuana dispensary if you have a criminal conviction? Shut up. He had nothing to say. So I just want to bring everybody together. We're not going to agree on everything. I was at a big event, Tim, I told you about this a couple of weeks ago, with probably someone who's so far over on the other political spectrum from me, Ian Hampton, right? So far on the other political spectrum. But when we sit down and we look at this issue, me and that man, you and that man will probably agree on 70 to 80% of everything. He's a little bit more pro harm reduction than I am. But at the end of the day, we want to keep people alive.
Yep.
At the end of the day, we want to save lives. At the end of the day, we want to raise our kids, And that's what it's all about. So we've got to come together.
We do. And if not, we'll come together and keep doing what we're doing, because I can tell you, I've never had a speaking event where people were walking out where people didn't ask us questions for hours trying to get out of there. You try to get out after being there 3 hours, and there's always that one family in the parking lot with their kid. It's 11:30. Hey, can you talk? And you sit there, but
how many times have you been in a parking lot of a school at 11:30 or midnight talking to people? I mean, I can't even keep count.
So our buddy Rich Wistocki, I'll end with this. 5 years ago, 6 years ago, I dragged him down to Southern Illinois. We're in, 8 hours from Chicago. You can't get any farther. We had a day of schools, the event at night, and Rich comes out to the truck. Jen, I know. And I've got a girl sitting there, and Rich is like, who's this? And I said, this is Stephanie. She's a heroin addict, and she's riding back to Chicago with us. He's like, where's she sitting? I said, next to you. And Rich is a cop. He's got his gun. He said that was one of the best educational lessons he ever had, because he got to spend 8 hours talking with this girl who still happens to be sober today.
Awesome.
But you got to be willing to do those things. That's
awesome.
what it's all about. Jen still gets messages from women. You spoke at a meeting 14 years ago. You said this, and I'm still sober. That's what it's all about,
Absolutely.
And we can do our part, and we can try to fight the system. And I know we've done it, and these people, it's not worth it. We focus in our lane. We stay in our lane, like steered straight. Mike, how can people find you on the web or social media?
Yeah, steeredstraight.org is the best place to start, get it, because everything is off of that. The Recovery Army videos are at recoveryarmy.com, but the link is on Steered Straight. So I always send everybody to Steered Straight. And so even if you want to email me a question, or especially you have a school district or something that me or one of the great speakers to come in and present that, please contact us. And all my haters, go to steeredstraight.org. Definitely email me. You know, it definitely can appreciate the hate.
You have haters too. So I'd love to say that haters are just fans.
Oh, they're your biggest fans, right?
They're your
They
biggest
are. They
fan.
have
Now
not-
they're constantly checking your page, your haters.
Love
They're a
them.
stalker.
They're stalkers.
They're a stalker. But that's it for the Tim and Jen show. We want to thank Lux Media.
We
We
love you,
want to
Mike.
thank
Thank you.
Michale Deleon.
Thank you
who-
for your passion.
Yeah,
Thank you for your passion and your will. to
Why do you
going,
keep cutting
because
me
you keep
off?
cutting me
Because
off
he-
because it's been half of it. Most of the time it's been your show. So I get to say at least goodbye.
Yeah. Listen to Jennifer, Tim. Listen to Jen.
Follow us, follow Mike, reach out, ask for help. Have an amazing day. For the
Love
Tim and
you.
Jen show, signing
Thanks,
off. See you
Mike.
next week.
Love you.
We want to talk to you about Clean Cause, better caffeine. What's in the can? Our organic, sparkling Herba Mate is a premium pick-me-up that won't let you down. Every can of Clean Cause contains 160 milligrams of better caffeine, and each sip supports recovery from alcohol and drug addiction. 50% of the profits go to assist people into sober living. Check out cleancause.com.
Seaside Palm Beach is an executive luxury addiction treatment center located in Palm Beach, Florida. Our private clients come from all over the world, including business executives, professional athletes, celebrities, and more. Seaside Palm Beach offers first-class amenities and high-end accommodations, including a gourmet culinary experience, ocean views, pet-friendly facilities, and access to cell phones and laptops during your stay. If you or a loved one are struggling with addiction, please call us at 877-959-5053. Again, that number is 877-959-5053.
Now, glutathione is a big word, but it's the body's own master antioxidant. So it's a scavenger for free radicals, for bacteria, and what's relevant now, viruses. This is new to the marketplace. There's no other product on the market that has the ingredient NACET.
And basically NACET increases the production of that glutathione that is in our body already to strengthen and enhance our immune system and keep it strong. Elevated sense of well-being, supports muscle strength and endurance, cognitive function, powerful liver support, energy, helps blood sugar regulation, superior bioavailability of key ingredients.
One of your best defenses against COVID is a strong immune system. Taking GSH Plus as a daily supplement does all that. And now we have the product out on the marketplace.